Hey, this is Doobie here. About a serious topic that a lot of people don't understand or ask me about quite a bit. And it's funny, it comes from a lot of the internet prostitutes who have actually taken the time to listen to my podcasting because they were trying to get my money. But all in all, that's cool. I mean, all right. But the thing is I don't know, with mental health and sex addiction, the reason why I hit this topic is there was a couple of things in the news about mentally ill young adult males that were being basically seduced by scammers on the internet to the point where they got so sexually frustrated that they took it out on people by killing them. So, I've already done the scope and the scale on the scamming. I've been a part of all that. I've got podcasts about that. But the thing that really gets to me is the fact that there are a lot of lonely people out there that are mentally ill and are not getting the proper treatment. And a lot of suppressed sexual anger can be very dangerous. And we all know about the orgasm, and if you don't, I'm sorry, one day you will figure it out. Literally. But the orgasm also releases so many chemicals into your mind that if depending upon the orgasm, you're basically numb for a good minute or two enjoying euphoria. It's just a state of mind that you rarely get, and when you do, you want to enjoy it as much as possible. It's like heroin. And when you have a hole that you're trying to fill, whether you have mommy issues, daddy issues, alone, at a lot of times that can be damaging to the mental state, especially when you're alone. And then you reach out on the internet, which is like common, and you have a lot of individuals that are looking at all these sexy pictures. Now, if you ever notice, and on my Facebook page I put it out there, a lot of these women have 4 or 5 different accounts to where different names, everything, but the same pictures and the same forte as I'm here to such and such. And whether they're paying for it or not, that can be, these women are trying to make money. I don't hold against them, but there are scammers in Nigeria. And on my Facebook, I did a research on who's been watching my Facebook page for the past week. And like I got 147 just from Nigeria in one week. Okay, and these are the Facebook and Instagram scammers that are trying to entice you. And the mentally ill that are sexually oppressed, living alone, dealing with these things, I don't care what age you are, you're constantly taking care of yourself, sexually. But it comes a time where you've got to intensify it. It's got to get stronger, like a drug addiction. Sexual addiction can take over your mind and your emotions. I mean, you can really, love is the most dangerous emotion we have. And it can be uncontrollable at times when you have urges that take over everything. Your thinking, your breathing, what you eat, where you eat, when you sleep. Everything's scheduled around that person and when you have a mental illness, you have things on top of other things on top of other things. And having that little release and state of euphoria, it can become very addicting, especially when the world is crumbling down on top of you. So the scamming and these these individuals that are trying to take advantage of the lonely ones, the ones that are looking for the attention, that feel like they have to have it in their lives. And that, with sexual addiction, you're always ending up doing something you regret the next day. And whether it's talking, acting, whatever, because that impulse can be very overwhelming. And with mental health, it it all depends on what you're dealing with. Like with depression, if you're dealing with so much depression in your life and you end up going online to find something to grab hold to, and you end up being with somebody who just wants to take advantage of you and earn their pay, well, that depression, you get into that rabbit hole and you start falling, you're not going to have an easy time getting back out of it. And suicide ends up being one of those options. Another is taking that anger out on the people we love. You'll see a major change in attitude, a lot of alone time, a lot of shower time. You will have with an addiction like that and that chemical overload in your brain. That's why sex on cocaine is so intense, or Molly, or even weed. Good strains of weed and sex go hand in hand, you know? And you have all these different chemicals going into your brain, and your brain can't handle half of them. So you basically go into reboot mode. Your whole brain, your body, everything just shuts down. Either you OD or you just pass out and you don't wake up for 2 or 3 days. Okay? Your mind works that way to replenish your body. It's an amazing thing. And with a mental illness on top of that, let's go with schizophrenia. That's a big one with me because I am a sex addict with schizophrenia. And that is very dangerous because our imaginations go into either God mode, where we dream and fantasize of women wanting and needing us, to the other end where we're wanting and needing them in a stalker mode. Okay, so, excuse me. So, with all this in mind, you have different people with different issues and different illnesses going after one thing, and that is attention. That is that whole filling need for someone to give us something that we've been needing or craving all of our lives. I have mommy issues. I always have. If you listen to my podcast before, I have that. So most of my relationships have been by dominant women who like to control situations, who like drama. That has always been my choice. Okay? But it's funny that my first real girlfriend was the most calm and intellectual. You know, and then my wife at the end knows me better than anyone, and she tolerates and understands where I'm at. You know, as time goes by and you start developing who you are and what you want to be, sexuality is a big plus in it. So as you discover yourself during the puberty era of mass proportion for some of us, when you also go through those stages, your mental health is starting to develop more. And with all this chemistry going on, you're going to have, with mental health issues, you're going to have overwhelming urges to discover sexuality. because once you discover it, that feeling, it needs to be duplicated. It needs to be multiple. If I were a woman, I would go for multiple orgasms every damn time. Amen. Can I get an amen? Yeah. Anyways, when we're developing, that's, I believe, where I found my foundation of being an addict, because I had sex with anyone, everyone. It didn't matter female wise, okay? I heterosexual, but I was a dog. I took advantage of people. I lied. I cheated. I did a lot of things just to get a piece of ass because I was addicted to it. And on top of that, I was developing voices. I was starting to see illusions. My music was starting to take over and help me. So I was going for that guitar rock star image through high school, where music was everything. And I used that to entice the women, to help my addiction. So my music addiction, along with marijuana, yay, helped my addiction to feed my mental health about my sexual addiction. So it was a circle. It was a circle I did not want to break. Okay. Now, 30 years later, after all the experiences that I have developed, the ability for my imagination to take over helps a whole lot with all the other addictions. So the fantasy world is a big plus for a lot of people with mental health issues. But when that fantasy world is starting to get taken over by reality because somebody is promising you something and keeps enticing you over, that getting that urge built up more and more and more, and if you snap, then everyone's world that is surrounding you, your entire life could easily end, and depending upon the direction you take it. So mental health issues along with sexual addiction, adding any kind of alcohol, weed, well, whatever. I loved ecstasy. Oh, that was the one thing with I could not, I couldn't handle the ecstasy because it enhanced all my senses, and I'm not gonna lie, I had sex 4 times that night. Okay, so let it be known, I'm not bragging about it, but ecstasy and me don't, I can't be around it. I will not let it around me because I have an addictive personality, and that would start a circle again, and I can't do that. I know my triggers and I know what I am capable of, but anything like that put in front of my face, it's just enticing me to start that circle all over again. And that's dangerous for anyone with mental health issues that have loved ones around them that depend on them, you know? So when a young, high teenager, young 20-year-old is in their basement because they can't get a job, their buddies are getting him high, and he's on his computer looking for something, anything. And all of a sudden, you get I don't know, a Sabrina or a Ruby sending them a personal message where they got beautiful pictures up and they're talking to them. But if you look down at the bottom of their Facebook page, you'll see that at the very bottom, they're from Nigeria. Okay, so, but he's not looking at that. He's looking at the sexy pictures. So they get into conversation. They start talking, where are you at? Where do you live? Could you help me out and buy me a gift card? Or I need groceries. I need gas money to take my kids to the sitters. There's a lot of them out there. But they send sexy pictures and they talk about what they're going to do to you. So the kid gives in, all right? And he gets these pictures and videos and he's enjoying himself. And he goes, okay, well, that gets boring after a while when you're an addict. You want more, okay? And when you can't get it, finding out that it was a scam and they scammed you out of about $50 of cards, you realize that anger and rage snaps. Okay, so where does that go? Well, mentally ill, it needs to be lashed out. It needs to be brought into somebody's attention. Somebody needs to see what I'm dealing with. They need to feel my pain. I need to announce to the world that I am tired of people taking care or taking advantage of me and destroying all my hopes and dreams. Okay. So just turn on the news and you're going to see a lot of issues with mental health people lashing out, knives, guns, however they're going to do it. You know, but all in all, I bet you 9 out of 10 of them is under sexual frustration. Don't get what they need, can't find what they need. They can't control the urges. They don't understand what they're dealing with. Okay, and there are a lot of therapists that will not deal with these sexual, I would say, tendencies because it's not the right form of therapy they deal with. How many therapists are able to talk about sexual issues? Because between everyone that's been molested, raped, incest, even men and women that want to become trans or adjust their lives to however they want. A sexual therapist is needed for a lot of issues for mental health people. And you get therapists that are not qualified to talk about sexual issues. Yay! So, I guess we go back to school on that one. But all in all, this podcast is about figuring out your own sexual pleasures and how you deal with them, and with a mental health issue that you're already dealing with. How are these issues or urges being dealt with? I mean, how are you choosing to figure these things out? Sometimes meat and potatoes is just not going to do it. You know, and they can make all the toys in the world, but your imagination, your mind, that's the key. Men are impotent because their mind is not into it. They just, whatever. Well, your body reacts to that. Okay? So, all in all, you figure out you, but keep in mind your mental health is also very important in the issue. And please, if you mix the two, don't go into a vicious circle that you're not going to be able to get out of. And that's where it gets dangerous. All right, peeps. Well, this is Doobie signing off. I'll talk to y'all later. Peace out. Bye.